This is the day 13 do now. The first question, they give you a formula of area of a triangle where the variables A represents the area, B is the base, and H is the height. In the formula you see 1/2 times base times height. Another way to think of this is 1/2 is the same thing as dividing by 2. So I would rewrite this equation as area equals base times height divided by 2. This makes it much easier to see what you need to do to the problem. To isolate that H, notice we have a B that's right beside it and a 2 that's under it. Those are both the coefficients of H, and when trying to isolate the variable, remember that you isolate it from its denominator first. So we have to take care of that 2 first. This is divided by 2, so the opposite would multiply by 2. Remember under, up, and multiply? So you would have 2a is equal to bh. To isolate the h from the b, it's beside it, so therefore you have to divide it. So divide by b, and the b's would cancel out. H is equal to 2 times a over b. So that's your final answer. In the second question, you have a word problem. This one is a little tricky. It says when 142 is added to a number, the result is 64 more than 3 times the number. Alright, let's see if we can identify any key words. I see the word is. Remember the is means equals. Go ahead and write that in above it. Equals. And there's another, or it says is added to. So let's take off that equals right there. Added is probably that key word in there. A number, we don't know what that number is, so let's just use the letter N. The result, that could be a keyword for equals, is 64 more than 3 times the number. Let's see if we can put this all together. When 42 is added to n, or 142 is added to n, the result is, there's that is, 64 more than. Well, we know that more means add, but remember the word than, what that does? It means take that thought and throw it to the end. So we have the plus 64 on the end. The end of what? We'll continue reading. 3 times the number. 3 times the number. So there's our equation. 142 plus n is equal to 3n plus 64. Now we can finish solving the equation to find out what our mystery number is. I don't see any complex fractions, so I don't need to cross multiply. I don't see any parentheses. I don't need to distribute. So we're ready to identify our terms. You have a constant, a variable term, and a constant. We have to combine our like terms. Notice that you have variables on both sides of the equation. That's one of your earlier lessons in this unit. So what do? We make sure that our variable terms are on the left and our constants on our right. So we have to move that 3n to the other side as a negative 3n, and our 142 to the right as a negative 142. Next step, you need to combine like terms. And I'm out of room on my screen. Let me see if I can do anything to move things up so I can still write for you. Okay, I was able to give us a little bit more room. N and negative 3n, those are opposite signs, so I have to subtract. 3 minus 1 is 2, but the bigger sign is the negative, so negative 2n is equal to 64 and negative 142, those are also opposite signs, so you have to subtract. And when you subtract, you should get negative 78. It's negative because 142 is bigger than 64, and that's negative. Then it's time to isolate the variable. We have a negative 2 that's beside the n, so you have to divide by negative 2. The negative 2's cancel out, and you're left with n is equal to negative 78 over negative 2. A negative divided by a negative is always a positive. 78 divided by 2 is what, 34? No. Let me see. No, not 34. Try 39. Okay? So that's your final answer. Last question, we have a complex fraction equaling another complex fraction, so this is where we do need to cross multiply. 3 times the whole quantity, x plus 9, you do have to have those parentheses, is equal to 5 times the quantity, x, what was that, a minus 2? Minus 2. Now that we have parentheses, we have to distribute. Distribute that 3 to the x and the 9. So you have 3x plus, don't forget that sign, 9, or 3 times 9 is 27, is equal to, distribute the 5, just like you did the 3. 5 times x is 5x. 5 times negative 2, don't forget the sign, is negative 10. Then you need to combine like terms, but you need to get your terms on the same side of the equation. So we have a 5x that needs to move over, so we'll write negative 5x. Cross that off. I'm going to try not to use our training wheels here. Positive 27 is a constant. I need to move it to the right, so I'm going to write negative 27. Now that we have like terms on the right sides of the equations, we can, we need to combine our like terms. Positive 3x and negative 5x are opposite signs, so you have to subtract, but the bigger sign is negative. 5 minus 3 is 2x is equal to negative 10 over and negative 27 are same sign, so you have to add. They're both negative, so it still stays negative 37. Then our next step is that you have to divide both sides by negative 2. I'm out of room on my paper. I'm going to have to do it over here on the side. So negative 2x, negative 37. Divide both sides by negative 2. Negative 2. The negative 2's cancel out, so x is equal to, well, negative over negative is always a positive. But 37 over 2 cannot reduce, so you're going to leave it as 37 over 2. Do not change that to a mixed number on the ECA, especially grade questions, they won't be allowed. So you can leave your answer like that. That's the end of the do now.